I'm joined now by Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, welcome. Always good to have you.
Thank you, Hugh. It's good to be back on with you.
What do you expect tonight from both candidates and the moderators?
Well, Hugh, the last time Donald Trump took a presidential debate stage, he ended the other candidacy. I'm not sure we're going to see quite such a resounding victory, unprecedented in the history of modern presidential debate. But I do expect President Trump will win handily because he's going to expose Kamala Harris's radical record. You know, she wants you to believe that she was born in Berkeley and grew up in Montreal and all of a sudden sprung forth fully formed as a presidential candidate, and just gloss over the fact that she's been Joe Biden's wingman for a failed 4 years in the White House, or that for 4 years in the U.S. Senate, she was the most liberal senator, which is hard to do when you're serving with Bernie Sanders. And before that, she was a soft on crime, open borders attorney general for the state of California. So many Americans don't know these things yet about Kamala Harris. She's only been a candidate now in her own right for about 6 weeks. I believe President Trump will expose her radical record and reveal to the American people that she is what she always has been, a dangerous San Francisco liberal.
Senator Cotton, your buddy in the Senate, Bernie Sanders, and I don't know if he's your buddy, he's your colleague in the Senate, he actually did us a solid, us being people who want Trump to win, by saying out loud the quiet part, which is she hasn't changed. She really does believe in Bernie's agenda.
It was quite a remarkable moment a couple of days ago on a Sunday morning show when Bernie Sanders did say the quiet part out loud that Kamala Harris hasn't changed her stripes at all. She is a San Francisco liberal. She is simply changing her tune momentarily to get elected because she knows her record is unpopular. And I make this point all the time, Hugh. Kamala Harris is not flip-flopping. Kamala Harris is lying. Look, she has always been a San Francisco liberal. She only has begun to change her tune in the last 6 weeks. Take her position, for instance, on the electric vehicle mandate. Now, she has sent out an unnamed campaign aide, maybe an intern working for free, to say she doesn't support an electric vehicle mandate. But, Hugh, she introduced legislation in 2019 called the Zero Emissions Vehicle Act. Again, this is legislation, Hugh. It's not an extemporaneous remark in a live interview. People put a foot wrong in live interviews on radio and television. We've all been there before. When you're a senator and you introduce legislation, it is a considered, deliberate process in which you weigh the pros and cons before you introduce a bill that you think should be the law of the land. She introduced a bill that would ban the sale of new gas-powered cars in the future. What are the American people justified in assuming? That an unnamed aide now represents her position, or that the law that she introduced represents her position? And I could go down the line, Hugh, on decriminalizing illegal immigration, or raising taxes, or taking away your health insurance on the job, or just revealed last night on CNN, apparently paying for transgendered transition surgery with your tax dollars for illegal aliens in this country.
I have that clip, Senator Cotton, and it's 3 minutes and 32 seconds, but I'm going to play it because we have time, and then I want to talk to you about it. On the other side, Andrew Kaczynski, the K-File, with Aaron Burnett last night on CNN, stuns Aaron Burnett by uncovering the form that Kamala Harris filed with the ACLU in 2019. Let's play cut 21.
Tonight, Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-File investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers. And I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
Taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally. You know, what else, you know, did you find?
Well, let's take a look at her answer here on drugs. She got asked about the question from the ACLU was, since drug use is better addressed as a public health issue through treatment and other programming, will you support the decriminalization at the federal level of all drug possession for personal use? And Harris answers yes. Now, what would that mean? Well, it mean the federal all drug possession. That's not just marijuana, which she alluded to in her answer to this question, but it also would mean
it's federal level of all drug possession,
fentanyl, crack,
use.
Cocaine.
I gotta say, Tom Cotton, I was stunned by that. In 2019, we knew about fentanyl. I just cannot believe about that question.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh, credit where credit is due for CNN for running such a segment. You know, if I said those things or if Fox News ran a segment like that, I'm sure CNN would be fact-checking them, saying that they're false. But it's all there in black and white, Hugh. This is the point I've been making for 6 weeks. Kamala Harris is a radical San Francisco liberal. She wants to use your tax dollars to pay for gender transition surgery for illegal aliens. She wants to decriminalize, not just say a small amount of marijuana for personal consumption in your home, all drugs, crack cocaine, heroin, fentanyl. This is who she is. Now, again, she can try to hide all she wants from her record, or she can finally put up an issues page on her website that is literally copy and pasted from Joe Biden's campaign agenda. But she's always been a San Francisco liberal. That's what she always will be, no matter what she says in the next 8 weeks.
Now, Senator, the big test tonight, there are two. Donald Trump has to stay on message, and he tends 2 minutes a long time, and he likes to give longer answers than that. But even more importantly, what do the moderators ask? I don't know David Muir. I've never worked with him, or Lindsey Davis. I don't know them. I do have 5 presidential debates with networks, and it's a group effort. I doubt there's one person in the room preparing the debate who will vote for Donald Trump. Never occurred to me that anyone at CNN would or anyone at NBC would, and therefore they're blue biased to begin with. Do you think they can avoid a Bud Light moment tonight?
So Hugh, I've got a couple suggestions for the moderators. You know, I've been out on the campaign trail over the last 2 weeks, helping our great candidates like Bernie Moreno in Ohio and Tim Sheehy in Montana, Sam Brown in Nevada. I'll be out soon with Mike Rogers in Michigan and elsewhere. It's always refreshing when you talk to local reporters who aren't part of the D.C. bubble, because they ask straightforward questions that allow the candidates to explain their positions for the most part. Obviously, you can get some bias locally too, but for the most part, reporters will simply ask, what's your solution to bring down prices? How would you stop illegal immigration? So I hope the moderators, rather than asking a bunch of long-winded prosecutorial cross-examination questions, will simply say to these candidates, what are you going to do to close the border? What's your plan to get our deficit under control? And let the candidates explain where they stand.
I had a 30-second rule, Senator, which was no question should be longer than 30 seconds. Whenever I did debates that I could control the questioning format, because long-winded questions are setups. That's the only thing.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the old joke at town halls or other forums whenever the folks open it up for questions, that your questions should have come in the form of two sentences. The first sentence should end in a question mark. The second sentence should be thank you.
Huh.
But no, so the moderators would be well served if they simply ask open-ended questions that allow the candidate to explain their positions and contrast their records. How will you bring down prices? What will you do with the tax bill expiring next year? How will you secure our border? That's one recommendation. The second recommendation, Hugh, is that this is the presidency. This is the job to be commander-in-chief. Of all the things Kamala Harris has hit out on and tried to avoid questions on, it's what she would do as the commander-in-chief, as the chief crafter of American foreign policy. We know what Donald Trump will do. 4 years, it brought peace and prosperity. Maybe you don't like his tweets or his manner, but no one can doubt that there was not a war in Ukraine. There was not a slaughter of 1,200 Jews in Israel. He didn't have Iran on the march all throughout the Middle East for 4 years. He can explain what he'll do to solve some of those crises. Kamala Harris really needs to answer, for instance, for her role in the Afghanistan humiliation and how she's going to respond to these crises around the world. This is an important moment. It may be the only presidential debate we have. Traditionally, there's three, and one is dedicated to foreign policy. So I really hope the moderators spend a healthy amount of time on foreign policy and national security tonight.
Last question, Senator. I would bet everything on two things: that she'll use the word convicted and felon more than 20 times, and the moderators, but that she'll also say, Donald Trump, you killed the bipartisan border bill. There was no bipartisan border bill. How would you recommend President Trump answer? We have a minute.
Look, the reason we have a wide open border, why we have more than 10 million illegal aliens flooding into this country, while in some towns like Springfield, Ohio, you have them swamping schools and housing and health care facilities, is because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden opened the border. They are responsible for this crisis, not some hypothetical bill that didn't pass a single chamber of Congress at some point during the Biden administration. That is Kamala Harris's record on the border. President Trump's record on the border, by contrast, when he was president, was to secure it and to force other countries to help us contain the flow of these migrants.